Hey guys, it's Ray. Welcome to the LitRPG Audiobook Podcast. Today we're going to do some reviews of classic and current LitRPG books. So let's just get right to it. I don't want to waste my breath because I have very little of it to waste. We'll get right to it right now. The next book is Deadline, Afterlife Online Book 4, the final book of the series so far, by Domino Finn. It's narrated by Justin Thomas James, so this could be considered a Soundbooth Spotlight, even though it's not by Soundbooth. I'm going to kind of call it that because it's spotlighting one of my favorite SBT narrators, Justin Thomas James, and has a book length of 18 hours and 46 minutes. It's worth it. It's really worth it.
We can do this, I boldly assured, in no small part to convince myself. 3 quests, to Oakengard, the Wild, and Shorehome. My tone dulled. Each without clear objectives, riddled with multiple hang-ups, and all before the deadline of 3 days. I frowned as my rousing speech kind of sputtered out. Trafford harumphed. I'm sorry to say it, son, but there's no way we can complete everything in time. The room shared a collective sigh. It was one thing to approach obstacles with a gung-ho attitude. It was another entirely to be successful. Blindly charging into failure might be brave, but it was hardly wise. The need for wisdom brought to mind Peter's poisoned rose. Maybe the first advice I'd ever received after dying. Then again, it wasn't long before I came up with a mantra of my own. Fight smarter, not harder.
When I first listened to book 1 of the Afterlife Online series, I said that the writing was so good, and I remember this so distinctly because it's so true, that I could have listened to the MC hunting stuff as simple as rabbits and been happy if the whole book had just been about him grinding XP, and I totally meant that. Thankfully, the book was good enough that it didn't need to just do this. It actually told more of a story, but it rapidly evolved into something grand, huge, sweeping, epic, if you get the idea where I'm going with this. It was spectacular. All along the way, it was all of those things. And you would worry that after 2 books or 3 books, the writing would have gotten weaker. That could not be further from the truth. Domino Finn is an incredible writer, and he builds up his story as he goes along. One thing after another. There's stage 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if he's got a quadrology and he's happy with it, I'm good with him keeping the quadrology in place because it is well worth the time and effort. I don't need a book 5. I would love a book 5. I would love to just see what happens after it's all said and done with and the world is free and clear, but that probably wouldn't have the conflict that you would need to make a great story. But I don't know, Domino could probably figure this out. Book 4 may or may not, as I say, be the end of the series. Ostensibly, it is, and if so, I can live with that because I firmly believe all stories do need an ending, but I will be sad. To that end, if you are jonesing for more from Finn, dig on his urban fantasy novels, The Black Magic Outlaw. They are absolutely incredible. I love them. I put them right up with Harry Dresden, and that's saying a lot. I love the series. It's really good. I just don't talk about it here because it's urban fantasy, and I should, but I'm so far behind on other books. I hate to pull something that's not in this genre out, and I do it occasionally with big novels, but it's a really good read. It's a great series, and he's going on. He's right there with certain other, the Yancey Lazarus series. They've got a lot of books in that series. So does this one. So, Black Magic Outlaw might be something you like if you enjoy necromancers or urban fantasy. That said, let me go back to it. Book 4 of the Afterlife book does not let the reader off easy. The book is action-packed and emotionally fueled. Unfortunately, that fuel might just be your tears, and I say that with all sincerity if you are too attached to some characters. And I'm not going to give anything away, but things happen. Just remember. I do like the idea of Talon, who's the MC. He's the guy that got stuck in the game, and then he finds out certain things, and then there's another person named Tad, who has a connection to Talon, who I don't want to reveal if you haven't read the series yet. But they work together to kind of save the game world, one from inside, one from out. That was a really good idea. It was really cool, really fun. I like that interaction. The book is really fast-paced, and I literally struggled to find places I could stop to have family time. It is, it's not quite 20 hours, but it's long enough that you just can't do it in one run. Unless you've got nothing else happening and you don't need to eat or cook or whatever. So, you don't want to put the book down. You want to grab it and run, and that's pretty much the way it was with me. I just kept going and going and going, and my wife would get mad. She's like, "Can you stop listening to that? Just come do something with us." And that's what I would do. I really tried to get that done. So the book is also packed with copious amounts of humor. Like I said, I almost crashed my car one time laughing at the antics in an earlier book. And part of that was just the delivery from Justin Thomas James. But it also is just the writing itself. And again, I'm going to say it like this. The laughter does mostly, and I don't want to say mostly, the laughter does have this bonus level with Justin Thomas James doing the speaking, because he's suave and yet silly at the same time. So he'll do something that's just crazy off the wall, and you're like, I can't believe he just did that or said it that way. And like his voice for Kyle, it always makes me want to laugh, just hearing him speak like that. But this is a man. He's a master craftsman. He's like smooth as whiskey. And if I drank whiskey, I would say I can really, really verify that, but I don't. But I'll say he's as smooth as a bottle of Code Red Mountain Dew, and I really like the Voltage much better. Voltage is my drink, but I can't find it in the 2-liter bottles, and that's what I drink throughout the day, is a 2-liter. So he's as smooth as a Blue Mountain Dew Voltage, is the best way I can put it. So, like I say, the storyline has Justin Thomas James' fingerprints all over it, because there's just nobody else who could have told this story any better. And I mean that literally, as much as I like other narrators and, certain things, James really has a feel for the story and for the characters. In much the same way I would say, Armin Taylor is made for VGO or for the Realms. This is Justin Thomas James's series 100%. He owns this lock, stock, and barrel. And I just don't think anybody else could have done it, especially the voice of Kyle. I mean, I keep going back to it, but I love Kyle's voice. And, so Justin Thomas James, he really helps keep this thing at the peak point that it needs to be at, because it never dips. But that's also because he's at the helm guiding you. So I will say this, I will miss this book. I can happily say that Finn clears up all the plot lines and storylines, so that pretty much nothing is unanswered. And that's always a bonus when you get to an end of a story. I can't literally find any kind of threads that were dangling or left loose. Nothing. I can find nothing. And that's rare. So, and if I miss something, and I'm sorry, but maybe, we could, just as an example, Shemner Kuznets, with his Goblin story, at the end of the last book, it was kind of said, okay, the third book was the finale, and then he came back with another one. Well, he had things left open at that, so there was a foot in the door kind of feel to it, and you kind of said, okay, I can see where he's going to be able to come back. This one, there's no foot in the door. He pretty much says everything is taken care of. It's all sewn up. Enjoy your new quilt, your blanket, whatever you want to call it. And button it up. It's done. But he can always go back and, start a new storyline if he wants to do that. So that's a really good world. I enjoyed it. And like I said, I think you will too. It's 8.4 stars. Hell of a way to end a series. Kudos to you, Domino. So the next book I'm doing, or the book I'm doing currently, I should say, is Ruthless, book 5 of the Completionist Chronicles by Dakota Kraut, narrated by Luke Daniels, and it is 12 hours and 8 minutes long.
Zone alert. To the unified race, humans, congratulations on your achievements this far. As of this moment, the path to the next zone has been opened. The entrance to the Bifrost is located on the eastern edge of this zone. The current zone has earned the designation Midgard, the abode of mankind. If all else fails on other zones, Midgard will welcome your return. Take heed. Use of the Bifrost means stepping into an energetic field. If you have not achieved a second specialization, also known as a third-tier class, there is a near certainty that you will not survive the use of this mode of transportation. A small group of well-armored humans stood next to a beam of colorful light that rose as a column into the sky. The largest of them, clearly a tank, nodded and strode forward. I don't know about you guys, but I'm ready to taste the rainbow.
Ruthless may just be my mostest favorite book that's taken place in the Completionist saga so far. I have loved the series up till now and really liked the spin-off Bibliomancer, and so was happy to see Joe really kind of go toe-to-toe with his full head of hair Wolfman rival a few times. The Bibliomancer does make a couple appearances here in this novel, and it's funny because what happens to Joe at the beginning of the Completionist Chronicles is a reflection of what the Bibliomancer did in his book. So you'll see they two don't seem to really like each other. They're at odds, and I think it's because they are made to be that way by whomever, and we won't say any guesses who's running that world. We all know who it is, but I won't give anything away. Also, the changeover from the narrator is a hoop that I've gotten over. I firmly believe now that Luke is doing a really fine job. So from this point forth, I will never mention again anything to do with that, because I think this is really where Luke Daniels kind of comes in and says, this is mine now. I really got the impression that he's like, okay, I own this, and I just do not want to share, and I will never let anybody else claim it. So that's it. It's his series. So that's where I'm going to leave it at. This time around, the story isn't a play on words of a title. Like, Ruthless does have a meaning, but it's not about like an NPC or even a PC named Ruth who goes missing at the end. I was really kind of expecting that. I mean, if you know Dakota Kraut, he's pulled some slick puns with the titles in the past, like Regicide. Come on, I gotta respect it. But at this point, I saw the words Ruthless, like Raise, even that had a dual meaning. Ruthless this time is pretty much straightforward, and it tells you everything you need to know about what the book is going to be, or it kind of reveals it at the end, I should say. The story is dialogue heavy, and which is a good thing, because Dakota definitely knows how to have people chat, and this really worked for me a lot. There was only one time that I found that there was a pun that kind of made me groan, and it felt like it was a forced or stretched kind of, I'm reaching for something, and I really want to tell this joke, and I'm just going to put it in there, and I respect that, because I know I have written stuff in the past, and I've said, you know what? This is for me. I don't care who else likes it, doesn't like it. I'm going to put this in here for me. And so I think that this is the case, but there was like a good neighbor kind of thing, or, what are you wearing, Jake from State Farm kind of thing. It was an insurance bit, and it just really needed some polish, in my opinion. And that was like the only thing I will say that I even said, man, I can't believe that survived like certain rounds of readings and stuff like that. So I know Dakota really liked that bit, and he said, you know what, I don't care who likes it, doesn't like it, it's in there, it's for me. And again, I'm not tearing him down. I know what he was doing, and it was cute, but it wasn't something I was like, I think I would have just said nope and just let it slide, or come up with something different. Otherwise, the book is about Joe dealing with some debuffs that he gets at the beginning of the story. And it's funny because it's kind of like, Jackson and his negative charisma, and Joe has a negative thing strike him. And no matter what he does, he knows about it, and it just seems to keep exacerbating the situation. So Joe and Jackson are very similar in a lot of ways in this book. Joe kind of sees what Jackson's going through. Now, unlike Jackson, Joe doesn't get the dinosaur hands. So Jackson has those really cool dinosaur hands, that the Rexuses. And when I say dinosaur hands, I mean like he has T-Rex heads for hands, not like little shrunken hands that he kind of goes, I can't really swing a sword because my hands are like a T-Rex. Not like that. Joe has other things that are much better than dinosaur hands. So anyway, it was nice to see like how Joe kind of struggles and gets a feel for things because he realizes it after the fact, and which is better than what Jackson does, because Jackson never got it. He just never really glommed on to what was going on with him. And even after they told him, he was kind of like, well, okay, whatever. But it's about him dealing with some debuffs. It's also about him getting blueprints. And then his biggest issue he has is that he has to stop a horde of hungry, newly minted PCs who are new to the world, and they're starving, and they're dying, and they're starving, and they're dying, and they're starving and dying, that want to take over Joe's new town because they think all the food in the world is there for some bizarre reason. And I think my favorite tertiary character in the Ritualist of all time is the apprentice that Joe has, who wants to use their powers to become an evil overlord and has no problem telling anybody what her true intentions are. Basically, she says, okay, I'm going to learn rituals so I can become an evil overlord. That's the thing with Kraut. The third tier characters have a vibrancy and a life all of their own. No matter what you think, something so simple that is like it's just as sweet as what Joe does, because there's realism to it, and it gives them a standout kind of thing. You'll not forget that character once you've read it. I mean, I was like, that's great. Just like the Alchemist, who was kind of like into evil things at the beginning of the Completionist Chronicles Book 1. Standout character. So, there's that rule where you don't name people unless you really want to give them a role or something like that, or whatever, because if you name them, then you got to have like a reason to name them. And so this is one of my favorite characters in the books. Now, as I said earlier, Daniels has smoothly moved into this slot as a series narrator. He got into his groove right at the very beginning of this one. I think the last book, he was kind of getting a feel for things, and here he comes into it. He is like the mighty Casey. He is swinging and going for the bleachers. Beyond that, he's going over the wall. He's killing it. I really enjoyed him this time around. I think in his first iteration, he was kind of struggling a little bit, in my opinion. I think he did a great job, but Dakota's humor, it's very specific, and I think he was trying to get a feel for it, and I think here he's got a grasp. He really knows it, and he handles Dakota's humor really well. My final score for this is 8.4 stars. I really enjoyed this book. I really do think that Completionist Chronicles has kind of, at this point, I know it's book 5, but it's stronger, in my opinion, than the Divine Dungeon. Divine Dungeon, by book 5, it was kind of, to me, it was kind of feeling rushed or incomplete, or there was just some things I said, it's good, I enjoy it, but it doesn't have the feel like the first 3 or 4 books had, and it always was like that down the line, like after that, like book 7, as good as the series was, it wasn't as solid. This series has some serious legs, okay? It holds up really well. It's just moving along, chugging along. And I think a lot of that has to do with him introducing certain things in one book and then playing them out in the next. Even with like the Wolfman Bibliomancer, becoming a rival. I like that a lot. I really like Joe and the Bibliomancer kind of scrapping it out with each other for a little bit, and then maybe in the future they're going to team up to do something. I could see that happening, but right now I think that, like I say, Dakota's strongest point is being able to take something that was just mentioned in the last book and then blowing it up here and making things happen. Only thing I would really like to see would be to be Joe changing blueprints. Like, he took that one blueprint in Raise, which I don't want to reveal anything, but he couldn't use it because it had certain connotations to it if he used it. I would take that and now change those blueprints to make it first stronger, better than what the original blueprints were, but also different enough that the people that actually own that right to that blueprint can't say, hey, that's my blueprint. He can say, well, I use this as a blueprint to make my own blueprint. That sort of thing, and really just go crazy with it. I think that would be fantastic. And I think the introduction of this new level into the series, going from, this place to that place, will play out probably not next book, but book after, just from the way it looks to me, the way things will go. So, lots of stuff happening here, 8.4 stars. Get this book, get this series. It's just incredible. Okay, gang, here is the Soundbooth Spotlight for the day. Adventurer Academy, Greyblood Book 1, by Daniel Prince. Narrated by Gary Furlong, Jeff Hayes, Aloria Vasquez, and Will Watt. This has a book length of 9 hours and 39 minutes.
The green-skinned creature licked its lips as it advanced towards him, a mad gleam in its eyes. He'd been lucky to find one by itself, as they normally traveled in groups of 4 or 5 when separated from their tribes. At this time in the morning, though, most had retreated to their caves to sleep, being nocturnal creatures. This one had been unlucky enough to get caught alone, and unfortunately for it wouldn't be going to sleep today. Lugor drew his rusty sword from its sheath. "Come and get some, you slime ball," he taunted. The goblin snarled at his words and ran directly at him, waving its bone dagger in the air as it charged. Its battle cry quickly turned into a fearful shriek as the ground suddenly gave way beneath it. It fell screaming into the pit Lugor had dug earlier and hidden with branches and leaves. "Works every time," Lugor said with a grin. Making his way to the edge of the trap, he peered in and saw the goblin had fallen directly onto the sharpened stakes he had left at the bottom.
AA, Adventure Academy, not the Battery, is one of those books that gives us the standard nice guy protagonist who has a questionable heritage that could be a big problem if he's discovered for what he is kind of story, if that makes sense. I know it sounds convoluted, but it's not. It'd be like, okay, we find out the protagonist is this really, really nice guy. He's dating this chick. She loves him, and it turns out he's a vampire, and she's a vampire hunter. Sound like Buffy? So he has this heritage that, even though he's really cool, it's not so nice. And if she finds out, she's gonna whack him. And that's the whole gist of this book. The MC is a Greyblood, and he's a half orc, is what he is. But he's a regular guy. And he's so much a regular guy that he just wants to become an adventurer, and so he sneaks off every night against his mother's wishes to do whatever he can to build up his experience. Now, that's where I'm going to say there's a couple things that kind of throws me off about this, and I really like this book a lot. But the one thing about it was you don't get a class until you get like a scroll, from my understanding of reading this book. And I listened to it twice where they said this. So in order to get a class, you have to adventure. So you have to go into a dangerous situation with no skills in order to get a class, and then you get a scroll, and then it's kind of like, think of it like you're buying like a Pokemon card set, and you're looking for a holographic card, and you buy 10 packs of cards. Well, only one of them might have a holographic card, and out of that 10, that holographic card that you do get isn't the holographic card you want. And that's all I keep going back to in my head is, do you get the class you're supposed to get, or do you just have to pick, like, okay, we found this, so I guess I'm going to do this now. Didn't really want to be a fighter. I wanted to be more of a thief or a rogue, or whatever you want to call it, or I wanted to be a bard. But I picked up I picked up the fighter scroll, and so that's what I'm going to be. And that was kind of the one thing I wasn't sure of. But other than that, it kind of made, it fit into the series, like the way the world worked, the magic worked. The way the MC does things is he sneaks out and he goes out and he traps monsters and then kills them. so that they're just all by themselves, they're alone, and they're helpless, and he's able to kill them. But he can't really gain any experience. Well, let me put it like this. He can gain experience, but that experience doesn't kick in until he can get his class. So he's kind of boned in that aspect that he's got like all this experience he's accumulated, and it's not a lot, but he's accumulated experience, but he can't do anything with it, and so he's still like this low-level noob, even though he's just kind of basically going out and killed, 80 goblins over a period of time. And that's because the XP he gets is minimal because he's not really classed. And the other thing is that it can't kick in because he doesn't have a class. So like having a class is really important. So the only thing I can think of is you got to hire a group to let you go with them, or talk somebody into it to go into a dungeon to get a class, and then you come back out, and so on and so forth. So it was kind of weird in that aspect of things. And the other thing is that the like I said, the assignment of classes are so totally random. That was bizarre to me. Now the MC does have a class that he would, that he respects a lot. But it was just one of those things where you like, in the real world, you would never see that happen. But he has a little bit of help he has some divine help when he does get his class finally. And so the MC is basically this doofus who is trying to become a blacksmith. He's got a boss who's a real jerk that likes him, but can't say he likes him because he's a jerk, and he doesn't want to take away his reputation at all. So he works with the kid as best he can, but he doesn't have a lot of faith in the kid, and then things transpire that causes the MC to go out and actually get a class. He ends up doing something that he shouldn't have done, but he gets a class out of it, and then he's able to help some people out. And like I said, I'm trying not to give too much away. And through that, he earns his way into this Adventurers Academy. Okay, and of course, once he gets to the Adventure Academy, there's some people from his hometown that don't like him because he was this dork, and that's all they know. They just don't like him, and so he's a dork, and that's why they hate him. If they knew the truth, it would even be worse. Along with other kids. So his experience there is kind of tainted to start off with. So he's not going to be able to become like one of the popular people because the popular people already said he's a dope. So he ends up hooking up with like a witch that he kind of finds along the way, a necromancer, and then this other guy who's a dwarf who's afraid to go underground. So, he meets up with all the nerds or the geeks or the spazzes or whatever you want to call them, and they kind of become like this nice little tight-knit group, like Ron, Hermione, and Harry. Yeah, just like that. There's 3 of them, and they're all outcast. They all fit together real well. Only this time, Hermione likes Harry and not the spaz Ron, so to speak. So he ends up getting a class that's really cool, and he ends up having the struggle through the school while trying to learn blacksmithing again. Even though he's good at blacksmithing, he's got to go through the whole process all over again and prove he's even better than what he thought. And he also has to defeat his rivals who do everything in their opportunity to beat him down when no one's looking. All on top of having this other sinister plot take place. So there's a lot happening here. And again, I don't want to call it like it's not Hogwarts School by any means or any stretch of the imagination. You don't have a lot of class time. You don't have a lot of that. It's not like that at all. But you can see parallels to it to a certain extent. But like, the MC has a mother who loves him and so on and so forth. He's not like an outcast at home. So the whole story is about him coming of age and accepting who he is and having others accept who he is by his acceptance of himself. And it's a really good story. It's fun. It's lighthearted. And I mean that in the most serious way. It's not heavy or dense. You don't have like this oppression hanging over your head. Even though there's bad things happening, it's not quite to the scale where you're like, oh, it's just crushing. It's lighthearted enough that you can go, yeah, it's silly because the teachers he has, they're goofballs in their own right. I mean, like they do things for a certain reason, but it's also got a comical aspect to it. So, it has comedy, it has heart. There's a lot of soul put into the book. I enjoyed the book. I think the narration was really well done. SBT was really spot on with this. Gary Furlong, it's new for me hearing him. I think Aloria Vasquez does a great job. She's really kind of coming into it on her own. I'm hoping to see her get a book soon all by herself, like, Laura Catherine Winkle or Annie Ellicott. Will Watt, love him from Shadow Son. Jeff Hayes, he's the master. And I will say, everybody has issues with audio. I was literally listening to the new Harry Dresden book, Battleground, and there was absolutely a scene that it repeats verbatim. I was like, did I hit a button? And I didn't. It starts off saying this, it goes through, and then it goes right back to it. So that's a big time publisher. So if they can goof up, anybody can goof up. Here I didn't find any flaws or issues with the sound or the narration. I think it was all perfect. I enjoyed it a lot. I think that SBT did a great job with this series. And I look forward to the book 2 and book 3 that I know are coming. I think you will too. I'm going to say it's an 8.1. I think that, like I say, the only issue I have with the book was more of the kid not standing up for himself when he was being bullied. I would have liked him to just say, okay, look, whatever, and beat the crap out of the guys like he should have the very first time. Even though they have like this nice little contest, that's not what I was looking for. I was looking for him to do something to take the kids down a peg against him, take him down, and I didn't get that. But otherwise, it's a good story, and I think it's something you would enjoy. And it's also it's got some original ideas to it. Like I say, the whole scroll thing is the only thing that threw me off on how that worked and why you couldn't gain experience if you didn't have a class. Because I think you have to be able to gain experience even if you don't have a class. That should be able to be worked into, and you can kind of power yourself up a little bit, but it didn't work like that. That was the only other thing I think that kind of clicked in my head. It said this could have been a little bit better if that hadn't been a factor, but it was a key part to the story. So it was necessary, and it was what it was. Other than that, though, that's the only reason why I'm saying like 8.1 stars, just because I had a couple issues where I wanted him to really stand up and beat the crap out of these guys at least once or twice, somewhere along the line, just do something. And we didn't get that until the big contest at the end, for them. So that was that. But otherwise, 8.1 stars. It's really good. I enjoyed it. I think you will too. Well, gang, that's our show for the day. Thank you again for listening, watching, whatever you do. I know I've been going for a while. I do appreciate you standing by me, taking care of what I've got to take care of, and hopefully this will be the end of the big delays and skipping and things like that. So, like I say, I do appreciate you taking the time to listen and watch. You can always support us by going to the LitRPG Podcast Facebook page or the YouTube page. Just share and like this video. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed the show. Please, as always, leave comments or suggestions. I do get to them. I listen to them. I respond back. I hope you want to respond back to us, because I'm not perfect. And my opinions are my opinions, and you are welcome to tell me why I'm wrong or why you think I'm wrong anyway. You can follow us, as always, on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher, as well as now, from what I see, and I haven't confirmed this yet with Ramon, even on Audible. We have our audiobook podcast on Audible now. So dig that, pretty babies. I think that'd be really cool. I do have a new book out. It's called The Nightmare Game NGS, The Nightmare Game System, which is the original MMORPG, murder, mayhem, all that stuff. So if you want to check it out, it's murder, mayhem, oppression, repulsive player game. Check it out. I would appreciate it. It's on Amazon. And remember, always leave a review if you can for a book that you've listened to or read. Authors really need that. They appreciate you taking the time to leave a review. So for LitRPG Audiobook Podcast, I'm Ray. Keep listening. And my dog just came down. That's why I had to stop and see what was going on.